Thanksgiving morning, I woke up in my Chicago apartment, anxiety creeping in. Another family gathering, another year of tension, this time, at a luxury resort in Palm Beach. On Thanksgiving morning, I woke up in my Chicago apartment, the familiar anxiety settling deep in my chest. Another year, another family gathering. This time, the destination was the Breakers, a luxury resort in Palm Beach, Florida. Grandpa Joe was covering all the expenses, as always. I did a final check of my suitcase and let out a long sigh. The mirror reflected a 33-year-old woman, me, Emily Walker, a research director at a pharmaceutical company, earning $160,000 a year. I lived alone in Chicago, having built my financial stability through careful investments. Money is important, but dignity is even more valuable. Grandpa Joe's words echoed in my mind. A self-made man in the construction industry, he had amassed his fortune through sheer grit. Everything I knew about financial management I learned from him. Since childhood, he had patiently taught me about investments, assets, and independence. He was the only one in the family who truly understood me. My sister, Tiffany Davis, was the complete opposite. A former flight attendant turned full-time housewife, she lived what appeared to be a glamorous life with her husband, Chad Davis, and their 7-year-old daughter, Amy Davis. But that lifestyle wouldn't exist without Grandpa Joe's financial support. Their towering mortgage, car loans, private school tuition, it was all funded by his generosity. Yet, Tiffany's social media told a different story. Designer handbags, 5-star dining, extravagant vacations. She was obsessed with projecting an image of affluence, carefully curating a life that didn't match reality. My parents, Bill and Linda Walker, were no different. Their seemingly comfortable retirement in Florida, also funded by Grandpa Joe. Their upscale retirement home, their lifestyle, it all depended on his money. They had always favored Tiffany. That hadn't changed since childhood. When I was in college, I paid for tuition with scholarships and covered my expenses through part-time jobs. Meanwhile, Tiffany had everything handed to her: study abroad programs, allowances, living costs, all provided by our parents. The disparity still lingered like an old wound. Be someone who can stand on their own 2 feet. Another lesson from Grandpa Joe. I had lived by those words, pushing myself to excel, to achieve independence. I built a career in pharmaceuticals, expanded my investments, and created a life free from anyone's financial control. The high-rise apartment overlooking Chicago's skyline was mine, earned through my own efforts. I didn't need to show off. I didn't need to pretend. I chose a life of quiet, self-made success. Lifting my suitcase, I felt the unease about this trip tighten its grip. Every year, the cracks in my family only deepened: Tiffany's need to compete, my parents' blatant favoritism, Grandpa Joe's silent concern. And I knew this year would be no different. In the taxi heading to the airport, I contemplated this year's trip. The Breakers, a prestigious 5-star hotel established in 1896, Italian Renaissance architecture and luxurious suites exceeding $800 per night. The Thanksgiving special dinner was said to cost $200 per person. Despite the glamorous ting, our family's reality was fragile and distorted. My sister Tiffany Davis's luxurious lifestyle, our parents Bill Walker and Linda Walker's comfortable retirement, all were castles built on the sand of Grandpa Joe's support. And this year, those distortions were about to reach their breaking point. Everyone must have noticed, yet no one dared to speak of the reality that now awaited us. Through the taxi window from Palm Beach International Airport to the Breakers, Florida's gentle sunlight streamed in. On Thanksgiving Day, I arrived at the luxury resort under pleasant weather. I was the last to arrive. Pulling my Navy ROA suitcase, I stepped into the Italian Renaissance-styled magnificent building. My simple yet elegant theory dress had slightly wrinkled during the long flight. The lobby spread out as a clean, dignified space. Above, luxurious chandeliers sparkled, and below, footsteps echoed quietly on the marble floor. Other guests were already enjoying their Thanksgiving afternoon in their own ways. On my way to the front desk, I spotted my parents, Bill Walker and Linda Walker. They appeared to be discussing something in a secluded area of the lobby. Mother Linda Walker was wearing what looked like a new resort dress, while Father Bill Walker was dressed casually, appropriate for his age. When our eyes met, they quickly looked away. "Miss Walker, I apologize, but I cannot find your reservation." The front desk staff's voice was apologetic. They kept checking the screen repeatedly, unable to hide their confusion. "I can see the reservations for your family members, but..." At that moment, the sound of expensive heels approached. I turned to see Tiffany Davis walking toward us with a triumphant expression, and her Hermès Birkin bag on her arm and a Cartier watch gleaming. "Oh, Emily Walker finally made it," her voice carried deliberate sarcasm. The front desk staff continued checking the system. Other guests' attention began to turn toward us. How strange that there's no reservation. Tiffany Davis's voice rose in volume, calculated to draw attention from those around us. Her Louis Vuitton suitcase stood out conspicuously next to my navy case. Actually, Tiffany Davis stepped closer, wearing a victorious smile. I only made reservations for our family. Her words echoed throughout the lobby with a mocking expression. She continued, a room for me, my husband Chad Davis, and daughter Amy Davis, and one for Mom Linda Walker and Dad Bill Walker. Just for the real family, you see? A moment of silence fell. The front desk staff was speechless, and our parents, Bill Walker and Linda Walker, turned their backs even further away. The air around me felt frozen in an instant. Taking a slow, deep breath, I said without changing my expression, I see. Then I'll leave. My voice came out calmer than I expected. Readjusting my grip on the suitcase handle, I politely nodded to the front desk staff. Taking out my smartphone, I opened the taxi hailing app. Wait. Tiffany Davis's voice rose slightly, but I was already preparing to leave the lobby. Feeling the sympathetic gaze of the front desk staff, I started walking toward the entrance. My sister Tiffany Davis, though caught off guard by this unexpected development, maintained her triumphant expression. Our parents Bill Walker and Linda Walker stood awkwardly frozen in place. Only the sound of my footsteps echoed through the silent lobby. The afternoon sunlight streaming through the main entrance felt oddly bright. While waiting for the taxi, palm trees swayed in the pleasant breeze. The Thanksgiving holiday I was supposed to spend at this luxury resort had ended in just a few minutes. Yet, in this moment, a strange sense of liberation spread through my heart. Grandpa Joe's words resurfaced again. Become someone who can stand on their own feet. Now I felt I understood the true meaning of those words. As I stood outside, waiting for the taxi, my gaze lingered on the hotel's grand facade. The Adams-style architecture, steeped in over a century of history, was adorned lavishly for Thanksgiving. Luxury cars arrived one after another, their impeccably dressed passengers stepping out with an air of effortless privilege. Through the glass-paneled lobby, I spotted my niece, Amy Davis, shifting restlessly behind her mother, Tiffany Davis. She wore an extravagant dress, far too formal for a child her age. Perhaps she was searching for me. Every Thanksgiving, it had become tradition for me to bring her a small gift. This year, I had carefully chosen a pearl hair clip, still neatly wrapped in my suitcase, now useless. The taxi pulled up. Sliding into the back seat, I instructed the driver, Palm Beach International Airport. My phone was already in hand, searching for the next available flight to Chicago. Thanksgiving airfares were notoriously high, but I didn't care. What truly felt costly was the emotional energy I had wasted on this family year after year. As we drove away, I watched the breakers shrink in the rearview mirror. Bathed in the golden afternoon light, its pristine facade seemed to embody our family's superficial glamour, all for show. But now, a crack had formed in that illusion. I didn't know what would happen next, but one thing was certain. There was no turning back. Inside the taxi, a quiet calm settled around me. The cool, steady hum of the air conditioning, the supple leather seats, the faint scent of pine from a discreetly placed air freshener, it all provided a stark contrast to the tense moments I had just endured. Outside, Palm Beach's signature scenery drifted by. Towering palm trees, sprawling white mansions, fleeting glimpses of the Atlantic shimmering in the distance. Normally, I would have admired the view. Now, it felt foreign, unreachable. Without hesitation, I pulled out my phone and dialed Grandpa Joe. The ringtone stretched longer than usual before he finally picked up. Emily Walker, what's wrong? His voice was composed, but I sensed the quiet authority beneath it. I have something to report, I stated plainly. I didn't embellish, didn't dramatize, just listed the facts. The missing reservation. Tiffany's words. How I walked away. My tone was measured, unemotional, the way I had trained myself to be. On the other end, I could hear Grandpa Joe's breathing shift, slightly rougher, heavier. He was angry, though he kept it restrained. I didn't soften the blow or seek reassurance. I understand, I'll take care of this. His words were low, firm. In that single statement, I felt the weight of what was about to unfold. Not long after I hung up, my phone began buzzing with incessant calls, the first from Tiffany Davis. Within 15 minutes, she had called over 10 times. Emily Walker, Amy wants to see you. She was looking forward to our Thanksgiving tradition. Can't you think about a child's feelings? The next voicemail, however, revealed her true frustration. My friends are coming for dinner. I was planning to post the perfect family Thanksgiving on Instagram. Do you know how humiliating it is to explain this? Her voice grew more desperate, more hysterical with each passing second. Between calls, emails from Bill Walker and Linda Walker began arriving. Mother Linda Walker's email was predictably cold. We could have added another room, but as Tiffany said, we prioritize the real family. You're independent now, aren't you? The next line cut deeper. If you can afford it, why not just book another room? With your salary, it shouldn't be an issue. Why are you making this so emotional? She even attached calculations, as if my worth to the family could be reduced to a financial equation. Father Bill Walker's message was even more brutal. Tiffany has a family, a husband, Chad Davis, a daughter, Amy Davis. You understand, don't you? Can't you just go along with it for Thanksgiving? Then, the final blow. This has always been your problem, Emily. You only think about yourself. Never about the family. Mother Linda Walker continued in a tone that made me seem like the villain. We had everything planned for social media posts. We were supposed to take lovely photos of you and Amy Davis. It's all ruined now. My chest tightened with each message I read, but these were words I should be used to by now. Since childhood, my sister Tiffany Davis and I had always been treated with this same kind of discrimination. As the taxi neared the airport, a new wave of messages surged in. Because of your selfishness, Amy Davis is crying. She had been waiting so long to see her aunt. My sister Tiffany Davis continued using her daughter as a shield. Until the end, behind it, I could only see vanity and pride. From Mother Linda Walker, more sarcastic emails arrived. Poor Tiffany Davis? If you knew how desperate she is about Amy Davis's future, you wouldn't understand, but children's education requires money. And yet, at a time like this, I felt no need to reply. If anything, I felt grateful that they had shown such blatant true colors. Just before reaching the airport, an email arrived from Grandpa Joe. I'm proud of your decision. I understand everything. At those words, my eyes briefly welled up with heat. However, these weren't tears of sadness, but rather a quiet determination, marking the beginning of a new chapter. My smartphone was still receiving persistent incoming calls, anxious messages from my sister Tiffany Davis saying, "Answer the phone right now." Accusatory emails from our parents Bill Walker and Linda Walker claiming, "Your selfishness is tearing the family apart." But I had reached a place where no one's voice could reach me. Getting out of the taxi, I started walking toward the international terminal. While booking my flight to Chicago, I felt a strange sense of liberation. This was the moment of being freed from the false real family. About 30 minutes after boarding the Chicago-bound plane, a new email arrived from Grandpa Joe. All family members were included in the recipients. The following is my final decision, to be announced. The email began in Grandpa Joe's characteristically dignified style. Today, on Thanksgiving, an incident occurred that severely damaged our family's dignity. The cruel treatment of Emily Walker is an injury to the Walker family name and cannot be tolerated under any circumstances. Effective immediately, I am freezing all financial support to Bill Walker, Linda Walker, and Tiffany Davis. I must remind you that your luxurious lifestyles are entirely dependent on my support. Those who have lost sight of family's essence, drowning in vanity and pretense, no longer qualify for such privilege. Just as I finished reading that part, calls from my sister Tiffany Davis began coming in. Her panicked state was evident from the frequency of incoming calls. "Emily Walker, please answer the phone. Convince Grandpa Joe?" Messages left on voicemail recorded my sister's voice in panic. It was clear that her life would become unsustainable without the monthly payments. All of her living expenses had been structured around Grandpa Joe's monthly support. Of emails from our parents, Bill Walker and Linda Walker, also flooded in. Their previous arrogant attitude had disappeared, replaced by desperate pleading. "Emily Walker, this is about our retirement. Could you please talk to your Grandpa Joe again? The $150,000 deposit for their reserved luxury retirement home would be forfeited, and their medical insurance subsidies would stop." Our parents seemed to be panicking at the reality of their retirement stability crumbling in an instant. "Do something, Emily Walker, listen if it's you won't hey." Mother Linda Walker's email contained unfamiliar words of apology. "I'm sorry for saying such terrible things earlier, but this is a family crisis." I quietly turned off my smartphone. Outside the window, a vast sea of clouds stretched endlessly, bathed in the soft glow of the fading sun. For the first time in years, there would be no perfect family Thanksgiving photos uploaded to social media. No curated images of a harmonious holiday gathering, no extravagant dinner spreads, no forced smiles for the sake of appearances. For Tiffany Davis, that absence might be an even greater loss than the financial fallout. The plane cruised smoothly toward Chicago, undisturbed by turbulence. Beside me, a fellow passenger scrolled through their phone, flipping between Thanksgiving recipes and shopping lists, perhaps planning a family dinner of their own. Normally, at this very moment, I would have been sitting in the hotel lounge, handing Amy Davis her annual Thanksgiving gift. After landing, as soon as my phone reconnected to Wi-Fi, it flooded with over 100 unread messages. Most were from Tiffany Davis, her frantic desperation bleeding through the screen. What am I supposed to do? I can't pay the loans? What about Amy's school fees? My parents, Bill and Linda Walker, had also sent increasingly alarmed emails. We might not be able to get the retirement home deposit back. What are we supposed to do now? I can't sleep at night thinking about the medical insurance. But the message that stood out most, the one that sealed everything, was from Grandpa Joe. This measure is irreversible. Consider it the consequence of your own actions. Any objection to my decision will result in the termination of all support. I calmly scrolled through the incoming messages, absorbing the transformation in their tone. The arrogance, the entitlement, all gone. Desperation had taken its place. Never before had each family member's true nature been laid so bare. Setting my phone down, I moved to the kitchen and put on a kettle for tea. By now, I would have been seated at a lavish dinner table, indulging in a $200 per person Thanksgiving course at the hotel. The thought made me chuckle slightly. Every year, Tiffany Davis had made sure to showcase this extravagant meal online, painting a picture of effortless luxury. Yet, in reality, they had been barely managing to cover their monthly credit card payments. A new call came in, this time from Chad Davis, Tiffany's husband. His voice wavered between panic, frustration, and blame. Beneath the pleas for help, I could hear the underlying resentment, criticism of Tiffany's reckless spending habits, frustrations over financial dependence, the first cracks in their marriage. Emails from Bill and Linda Walker continued arriving. The retirement home won't refund the $150,000 advance payment. Medical insurance will now be self-paid from next month, because of you. Our retirement is ruined. And yet, despite everything, they still defended Tiffany. Still scolded me. As if they had learned nothing. I reached into the fridge, pulling out a lemon, slicing it into thin rounds, and adding it to my tea. Tomorrow I would return to work as usual. The research data analysis I had been working on still awaited my attention. My $160,000 salary continued to accumulate. My investments remained intact. A stable life. A foundation built by my own hands. Outside my window, the Chicago skyline shimmered under the night sky, the lights from towering buildings resembling distant stars. As I sipped my tea, a thought surfaced, my own credit card statement. Full balance, paid in full every month. No debt. A life of moderate luxury, within my means. Grandpa Joe's favorite saying came back to me. Vanity is for others. Savings are for yourself. Here, in this city, I had carved out my own life through sheer effort. And now I knew. I had made the right choice. From my phone, the calls kept coming. But those voices? They would never reach me again. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving in early December, Chicago was blanketed in its first snow days were spent immersed in new projects at the pharmaceutical company's laboratory. Amidst the unchanging daily routine, my family's situation had undergone dramatic changes. The changes were first noticeable on social media. My sister Tiffany Davis's Instagram, which had been updated almost daily, had suddenly fallen silent. Her last post was from the day before Thanksgiving, a photo of her Hers bag at an upscale restaurant tagged with a dream lifestyle. The comment saying what a wonderful life now seemed painfully ironic. Emails from Father Bill Walker finally showed genuine remorse. I'm reflecting on our years of extravagant living. We spoiled Tiffany Davis too much and we were cold to you. I'm sorry. Similar messages arrived from Mother Linda Walker. With their medical insurance subsidies cut off, they were finally realizing the true cost of healthcare. Our pension alone is nowhere near enough. I finally understand how luxuriously we were living. Catherine's situation was even more serious. I received an unexpected call from her husband Chad Davis. I've discovered hidden debts she kept secret. I'm shocked by the credit card bills. We can't maintain this lifestyle anymore. With Grandpa Joe's support suddenly cut off, their facade of affluence was rapidly crumbling. We're considering moving to a cheaper house, looking at public schools for Amy Davis too. Tiffany Davis cries every night, his voice mixed with exhaustion and resignation. Their marriage itself seemed to be in crisis. In contrast, my life remained peaceful. I arrive at work at 8 a.m. and return home at 6 p.m. Weekends are spent attending investment study groups, reviewing my savings management, continuing my life within reasonable means. Just yesterday I was promoted to team leader for a new research project. My salary is expected to increase gradually. Investment trust operations are going well with no worries about the future. Vanity brings momentary satisfaction, savings bring lifelong peace of mind. The weight of Grandpa Joe's words was now being felt deeply by the entire family. While my parents Bill Walker and Linda Walker worried about retirement insecurity and my sister Tiffany Davis struggled with debt repayment, I was simply continuing my ordinary life over these 2 weeks. The frequency of emails and calls had significantly decreased. The desperate contacts that came daily during the one stone few days had dwindled to once or twice a week. Their content too was gradually shifting toward resignation. Amy Davis will be transferring to public school. Take the school bus. I never imagined my sister Tiffany Davis's latest email showed signs of accepting reality. The Ed Ream private school life she had shared on social media would never be posted again. Our parents Bill Walker and Linda Walker were also considering moving from their luxury Florida community to an affordable condominium. Struggling with medical bill payments, their dream of a luxurious retirement had crumbled easily. "We've been living with wrong values for years." That's what was written in Father Bill Walker's latest email. However, whether this realization would become a catalyst for restoring true family bonds remained uncertain. Last week I received a concise email from Grandpa Joe. "Awakening to the truth of life sometimes brings pain, but it's necessary pain. Your decision gave them an important lesson." I didn't reply, I just quietly saved the email. In Chicago's sky, new stars were twinkling. 3 months had passed since that Thanksgiving. In Chicago, the first hints of spring were beginning to show, the lingering chill gradually giving way to the promise of warmth. My life hadn't changed. Or rather, it had become even more fulfilling. The new pharmaceutical project I was working on was progressing smoothly, and just last week, I received official notice of a promotion. My contributions as research director had been recognized, and with it came a salary increase to $200,000. Meanwhile, my investment trust operations continued growing steadily, my assets accumulating with each passing month. From my office window, I gazed out at Lake Michigan, its vast surface shimmering beneath the spring sunlight, reflecting a quiet sense of renewal. Piled high on my desk were stacks of new research data, the kind of work I thrived in. The hours spent immersed in research were my most valuable time, a reminder of the life I had built, free from illusions. A birthday gift had arrived from Grandpa Joe a few days ago. A simple pearl necklace. Attached was a card, handwritten in his signature elegant script. "True brilliance dwells in those who stand on their own feet." I had limited my contact with my parents, Bill and Linda Walker. They had moved from their luxury Florida community to a more affordable condominium, adjusting, with difficulty, to a life without indulgence. Struggling with medical bills, they seemed to be slowly accepting reality. Luxury brings fleeting happiness, but true security lies in a life built on stability. For the first time ever, my mother, Linda Walker, sent an email that carried a genuine sense of understanding. As for my sister, Tiffany Davis, her life had also changed. Her family had relocated to an ordinary suburban neighborhood, their former extravagance no longer sustainable. Amy Davis had started attending public school, learning to ride the school bus, something unthinkable just months ago. On social media, Tiffany's once flashy posts had vanished. Her accounts remained silent. And in a rare email, she confessed what I had long known. How empty it all seems now, posting just to keep up appearances. Days now spent struggling with credit card payments, tensions in her marriage lingering but no longer ignored. At the very least, they were finally facing reality. As for me, I had begun setting new goals. I wanted to further my achievements in pharmaceutical research, to lead my own research team one day, guiding young researchers as Grandpa Joe once guided me. On holidays, I attended study groups on investments and economics, surrounded by like-minded individuals, people who led practical, grounded lives. The conversations were genuine. No pretense, no vanity. Refreshing. The Thanksgiving incident had left behind lessons, for each of us. The importance of financial independence. The emptiness of living for appearances. And above all, the true meaning of family. Grandpa Joe's final words still echoed in my mind. Real bonds are only forged after overcoming hardship. Inside my desk drawer, the pearl hair clip, the one I had bought for Amy Davis, remained. Still wrapped beautifully, untouched. Perhaps, one day, when she truly understands value, when she learns that self-worth isn't measured in social media likes, but in her own strength. Then, and only then, it will be the right time to give it to her. Outside my window, the early spring wind stirred through the city streets. A quiet whisper of change.